It was a bright, sunny morning in the heart of downtown Atlanta. The city's financial district was alive with the hustle and bustle of professionals making their way to work, their polished shoes clicking against the marble floors of towering skyscrapers. Among the crowd, Marcus and Alicia Thompson stood out not because of their impeccable style, though they were certainly well-dressed, but because of the quiet determination that radiated from them as they walked hand in hand toward the gleaming glass doors of First National Bank. Marcus, a tall man with a confident stride, wore a tailored navy blue suit that highlighted his athletic build. His deep brown skin contrasted sharply with the crisp white shirt beneath his jacket, and his sharp eyes, hidden behind sleek glasses, scanned the bank's grand entrance as they approached. Beside him, Alicia was the picture of elegance and intellect. Her curly hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and her tailored emerald green dress hugged her figure just right. She held a leather briefcase in one hand, her thumb gently brushing over the handle in a subconscious gesture of reassurance. Today was a big day for them. They were here to meet with Mr. Robert Hale, the bank manager, to discuss a loan that would allow Marcus to expand his tech company, Thompson Innovations. The business had been steadily growing for years, and this expansion was the next logical step. Marcus had spent countless nights perfecting the proposal, running the numbers over and over again to ensure everything was airtight. Alicia, a seasoned financial analyst, had meticulously reviewed every detail, making sure the plan was solid. They knew they were ready. The bank's opulent interior reflected the wealth and power of its patrons' gold accents on the marble walls, crystal chandeliers hanging from the high ceilings, and the quiet hum of business being conducted in plush leather chairs. Marcus and Alicia approached the reception desk, where a young woman greeted them with a professional smile. "Good morning. How can I assist you today?" she asked, her tone polite but distant. "We have an appointment with Mr. Hale at 10 a.m., Marcus replied, his voice steady and calm. The receptionist's eyes flickered to her screen as she typed in their information. "Ah, yes, Mr. Hale is expecting you. Please follow me." They were led through the maze of offices to a large corner room. As the receptionist opened the door, Marcus and Alicia stepped into Mr. Hale's office. The room was just as grand as the rest of the bank, with a massive mahogany desk dominating the space. Behind it sat Mr. Robert Hale, a man in his late 50s with thinning gray hair, a round face, and a pinched expression that seemed permanently etched onto his features. Mr. Hale looked up from his paperwork as they entered, his pale blue eyes narrowing slightly as he took in the sight of Marcus and Alicia. He didn't rise to greet them, nor did he extend a hand. Instead, he gestured toward the two leather chairs opposite his desk. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I presume. Please, have a seat," he said, his tone clipped and cold. Marcus and Alicia exchanged a brief glance before sitting down, placing their briefcase on the desk between them. Mr. Hale leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled together as he regarded them with a look that was more appraising than welcoming. "I understand you're here to discuss a business loan, Mr. Hale began, his voice carrying an air of condescension that was impossible to ignore. "Yes," Marcus replied, maintaining his composure. "We've prepared a detailed proposal for the expansion of my tech company. Thompson Innovations has been growing steadily, and we believe that with this loan, we can take it to the next loan." Alicia opened the briefcase and pulled out the neatly bound proposal, sliding it across the desk to Mr. Hale. He glanced at it briefly, making no move to pick it up. "Thompson Innovations, you say," he murmured, as though testing the name on his tongue. "And what exactly does your company do, Mr. Thompson?" Marcus launched into a concise explanation of his business, detailing their innovative software products, their expanding client base, and the projected growth with the new infusion of capital. Alicia supplemented his points with financial data, demonstrating the solid foundation of their business and the realistic projections they had developed. But as Marcus spoke, he couldn't help but notice Mr. Hale's disinterested expression. The bank manager's eyes seemed to glaze over as if he had already made up his mind. Alicia, too, picked up on the subtle signals the way Mr. Hale's fingers tapped impatiently on the desk, the slight curl of his lip as Marcus mentioned their success. When Marcus finished, Mr. Hale finally picked up the proposal, flipping through the pages with a bored expression. After a few moments, he closed it and set it down without bothering to look at the detailed financials. "I see," Mr. Hale said, his voice devoid of enthusiasm. "I'm familiar with the type of business you run, Mr. Thompson. Unfortunately, we at First National Bank have certain standards and criteria that must be met before we can approve a loan of this magnitude." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard this tone before, the tone of someone who was about to say no without giving a legitimate reason. Alicia's hand tightened around the edge of her chair, her knuckles turning white. "Standards and criteria," Marcus repeated, trying to keep his voice even. "I assure you, Our proposal meets all the necessary requirements. Our credit is excellent, our business is profitable, and we have a clear plan for growth." Mr. Hale offered a tight-lipped smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure you believe that, Mr. Thompson. However, there are other factors to consider, factors that may not be immediately apparent to you. The banking industry is complex, and we must be cautious with whom we choose to invest." The coded language was unmistakable. Marcus could feel his anger rising, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Other factors? Like what?" Mr. Hale's smile widened just a fraction. "Well, there are risks involved, particularly with businesses owned by individuals who might not have the same level of experience or background as others in this industry. We have to consider the long-term viability and the potential for repayment." Marcus and Alicia both knew what he was implying. It wasn't about experience or background, it was about race. Mr. Hale didn't trust them because they were black. Alicia's voice was tight with controlled anger. "We've provided all the documentation required by the bank, and we've demonstrated our ability to repay the loan. If there's a specific concern, we'd appreciate you stating it clearly." Mr. Hale's expression turned icy. "I'm afraid the bank has decided not to proceed with your loan application. It's a matter of policy, you see. I suggest you try one of the smaller banks. They might be more willing to take on the risk." The final word hung in the air like a slap in the face. Marcus and Alicia stared at Mr. Hale, their initial shock quickly giving way to a simmering rage. They had worked too hard, built too much, to be dismissed like this, especially by someone who clearly had no intention of giving them a fair chance. Without another word, Alicia closed the briefcase and stood up. Marcus followed, his jaw clenched so tightly that he could feel the tension in his temples. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Hale," Alicia said, her voice cold. "We'll be taking our business elsewhere." As they turned to leave, Mr. Hale didn't bother to respond. Instead, he simply resumed his work, as if they had never been there. But as Marcus and Alicia walked out of the bank, their minds were already turning. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Marcus and Alicia walked out of the bank, their polished shoes clicking against the cold marble floors. The grandiose interior of First National Bank seemed to mock them as they exited through the massive glass doors. The sunlight hit them, but it did little to lift the dark cloud of frustration hanging over their heads. The street outside was alive with the hum of the city. But for the couple, the vibrant noise felt distant and muffled. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, Marcus clenched his fists, his knuckles white against his dark skin. He wanted to scream, to punch something, anything to release the anger that had been building inside him since they first sat down in front of Mr. Hale. Alicia, always the calmer of the two, noticed his clenched fists and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Marcus, let's just get home," she said softly, her voice steady but laced with a quiet fury of her own. He nodded, though the fire in his chest refused to die down. They walked in silence to their car, parked a block away. The walk felt longer than usual, as if the weight of the morning's events had slowed time itself. Once inside the car, Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly, staring straight ahead, trying to calm the storm raging inside him. Alicia watched him for a moment before speaking, her tone carefully measured. "We knew this might happen," she said, though the bitterness in her voice was undeniable. "We've dealt with this kind of thing before." "But not like this," Marcus snapped, unable to hold back any longer. He turned to her, his eyes blazing with frustration. "We had everything in place, Alicia. Everything." And that he struggled to find the right words, his anger making it difficult to speak. "That smug, racist piece of—" "I know," Alicia interrupted, her voice firmer now. "I know exactly what he is. But we can't let him get to us. We have to stay focused." Marcus let out a long breath, trying to rein in his emotions. "I focused on what? We put everything into this plan, and he dismissed us like we were nothing. All because we're black. I'm so sick of this." Alicia nodded, her expression hardening. "So am I. But we can't give up. We've come too far to let someone like him stop us now." Marcus finally turned to look at her, his expression softening as he saw the determination in her eyes. He knew she was right. They had faced discrimination before, but this time it felt different, more personal, more vicious. They couldn't let it break them. "You're right," he said quietly, the anger in his voice now tempered with resolve. "We'll find another way. We always do." Alicia gave him a small, encouraging smile. "We will. But first, let's get out of here. I need to clear my head." Marcus nodded and started the car, pulling away from the curb. As they drove through the busy streets of Atlanta, the tension in the car slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a steely determination to find another path forward. They drove in silence for a while, each lost in their thoughts. Finally, Alicia broke the silence, her voice thoughtful. "Marcus, what if we didn't need another bank?" He glanced at her, a frown creasing his brow. "What do you mean?" "What if we could secure funding without going through a traditional bank? There are other options: investors, private lenders, even crowdfunding. We don't have to play by their rules." Marcus considered this, the gears in his mind beginning to turn. We'd have to get creative, but it's possible. It would take time, though, and we'd need a lot of support. Alicia nodded, her eyes focused straight ahead as ideas began to form in her mind. "We have connections. We know other Black entrepreneurs who face similar challenges. If we pool our resources, maybe we could create something even bigger than what we originally planned." Marcus's eyes widened slightly as he realized where she was going with this. "Are you suggesting we build our own funding network? Something that could help other Black-owned businesses too?" "Exactly," Alicia said, her voice gaining strength. "We're not the only ones dealing with this. If we can create a system that supports businesses like ours, we could not only expand our company, but help others succeed as well." Marcus felt a spark of excitement for the first time since they left the bank. It would be a challenge, but it could work. We'd be taking control of our own destiny, instead of relying on people like Hale. Alicia smiled, the idea energizing her, and it would send a message that we won't be held back by their prejudice. We'll rise above it and build something even stronger. Marcus nodded, feeling his earlier frustration melting away, replaced by a sense of purpose. "Then let's do it. Let's find a way to make this happen." They spent the rest of the drive home discussing the possibilities, their ideas growing more ambitious by the minute. By the time they pulled into the driveway of their suburban home, the anger and frustration they had felt earlier had transformed into a fierce determination. As they walked into their house, Alicia turned to Marcus, her eyes gleaming with resolve. "We're going to make this work, Marcus. We're going to show them what we're capable of." Marcus wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "I know we will. Together, we can do anything." With renewed energy, they sat down at their dining room table, laptops and notebooks spread out before them. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room as they began to plan their next move. They had been knocked down before, but this time they were determined to rise higher than ever. And as they worked late into the night, sketching out plans and making lists of potential allies, they knew one thing for certain: they wouldn't stop until they had turned this setback into a triumph. Little did they know, their journey was only just beginning. What started as a plan to secure a loan would soon become something much larger, something that would change not only their lives but the lives of countless others as well. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Marcus and Alicia. Their days were filled with phone calls, meetings, and strategy sessions as they laid the groundwork for their new plan. They were determined to build something that would not only benefit their own business, but also empower other Black entrepreneurs who face similar obstacles. Every evening, their dining room table was covered with papers, laptops, and notebooks, the once pristine space transformed into a command center of sorts. They worked tirelessly, often late into the night, driven by the memory of Mr. Hale's smug dismissal and the burning desire to prove him wrong. One evening, after a particularly long day of calls and emails, Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "We've got a solid list of potential investors," he said, his voice tinged with exhaustion, but also excitement. "But we need something that will really grab their attention, something that makes them believe in this as much as we do." Alicia looked up from her laptop, her fingers pausing mid-type. "I've been thinking about that," she said, her tone thoughtful. "We need a flagship project, something that not only shows our capabilities but also highlights the potential of this network we're building." Marcus nodded slowly, considering her words. "A flagship project, like a proof of concept." "Exactly," Alicia replied, her eyes lighting up. "What if we started by buying a small, struggling business? Something that's been undervalued because of who owns it. We could turn it around, show what can be done with the right support and resources. It would be a powerful statement." Marcus's mind raced with possibilities. It would need to be something significant, something that resonates with our community and our investors. Maybe a business with a strong foundation but in need of a new direction or a cash infusion. Alicia nodded. "And we could document the entire process. Show the transformation step by step. It would serve as a blueprint for other entrepreneurs who might feel discouraged by the system." Marcus leaned forward, his fatigue forgotten, as the idea took shape. "We could even use the success of this project to attract more investors. Once they see what we're capable of, they'll want to be part of it." Alicia smiled, feeling a surge of optimism. "This could be the start of something huge, Marcus. We could create a new kind of financial ecosystem, one that supports our community and helps break down the barriers that people like Mr. Hale put in our way. Their excitement grew as they began to brainstorm potential businesses to acquire. They considered various options: restaurants, retail stores, even small manufacturing companies, but none of them seemed quite right. Then one day, as Marcus was scrolling through listings of businesses for sale, something caught his eye. It was a small, independent bank that had been struggling for years. Located in a predominantly black neighborhood, the bank had seen better days, its financial situation weakened by the economic downturn and the larger banks siphoning away its customers. "Alicia, come take a look at this," Marcus called out, his voice tinged with excitement. Alicia walked over, peering at the screen over his shoulder. "A bank?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not just any bank," Marcus said, turning to face her. "Look at where it's located. It's in a neighborhood that's been historically underserved by the big financial institutions. This place has potential, Alicia. With the right management and resources, it could be revitalized and serve as a financial hub for the community." Alicia frowned slightly, thinking it over. It's risky. Banks are complicated businesses, especially one that's been struggling like this. But it could also be exactly what we're looking for. If we could turn it around, it would make a huge impact. Marcus nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. "And think about the message it would send. We'd be taking control of a financial institution, something that people like Hale think we're not capable of. We could turn this into a symbol of economic empowerment for our community." Alicia sat down beside him, already beginning to research the bank's history and financials. "If we're going to do this, we need to be prepared. We'll need to bring in experts, people who know the banking industry inside and out. And we'll have to get our investors on board with the idea." Marcus smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Then let's start making calls. If we can pull this off, it'll be the game changer we've been looking for." The next few days were a blur of activity as they reached out to their network, pitching the idea to investors and gathering a team of financial experts. They were met with a mix of enthusiasm and skepticism. Some investors were excited by the prospect of revitalizing a community bank, while others were wary of the risks involved. But Marcus and Alicia were undeterred. They knew that this was the right move, and they were determined to make it happen. With each conversation, they refined their pitch, addressing concerns and highlighting the potential for both social impact and financial return. Gradually, their coalition of supporters began to grow. Investors who had initially been hesitant started to come on board, swayed by Marcus and Alicia's vision and their unwavering commitment to the project. They secured the funds needed to make a serious offer on the bank, and as the pieces began to fall into place, their excitement grew. One evening, after another long day of negotiations, Alicia looked up from her notes, a triumphant smile on her face. "We've got it, Marcus. We have enough backing to make an offer." Marcus grinned, the weight of the past few weeks finally lifting. "Then let's do it. Let's show them what we're capable of." With their offer in hand, they scheduled a meeting with the bank's board of directors. The board members were a mix of elderly businessmen, most of whom had watched the bank's decline with a sense of inevitability. They were skeptical at first, questioning whether Marcus and Alicia had the experience and resources to turn things around. But as Marcus and Alicia presented their vision, one of revitalizing the bank and transforming it into a cornerstone of the community's economic revival, the board began to warm to the idea. They outlined their plans to modernize the bank's services, attract new customers, and provide much-needed financial education and support to the neighborhood. By the end of the meeting, the board members were visibly impressed. They had seen many potential buyers over the years, but none with the passion and clarity of purpose that Marcus and Alicia brought to the table. After a brief discussion, the board agreed to sell the bank to them. As they walked out of the boardroom, the reality of what they had just achieved began to sink in. They had done it. They were about to become the owners of a bank that they would transform into a beacon of hope and opportunity for their community. Marcus turned to Alicia, a wide grin spreading across his face. "We did it. We actually did it." Alicia smiled back, her heart swelling with pride. "This is just the beginning, Marcus. Now the real work starts." And so, with the keys to the bank in their hands, Marcus and Alicia set out on the next phase of their journey, one that would not only change their lives, but also the lives of countless others in their community. With the bank now under their ownership, Marcus and Alicia wasted no time getting to work. The old building, though structurally sound, had clearly seen better days. Its outdated interior reflected years of neglect, with faded carpets, dim lighting, and a general air of obsolescence that did little to inspire confidence in its clients. But where others saw a dying institution, Marcus and Alicia saw potential and opportunity to bring new life and energy into the community. They immediately set about making changes. The first step was to assemble a team that shared their vision. They reached out to like-minded professionals, financial experts, community organizers, tech innovators, many of whom were eager to join a project that promised both a strong social impact and the chance to disrupt the status quo in the banking industry. One of the first hires was Terrence Lawson, a veteran banker with decades of experience in community banking. Terrence had seen firsthand how small banks could thrive with the right leadership and a focus on serving their neighborhoods. He quickly became Marcus and Alicia's right-hand man, helping them navigate the complex regulatory landscape and providing invaluable insights into the intricacies of banking. "Terrence, we want to make this bank a pillar of the community," Marcus said during one of their first meetings. "We want to offer services that actually help people: affordable loans, financial literacy programs, support for small businesses. This isn't just about making money, it's about making a difference." Terrence nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I've been in this business a long time, and I've seen too many banks lose sight of that mission. It's refreshing to work with people who actually care about the community they serve. We can do this, Marcus. It's going to take hard work, but we can make this bank hard." Alicia, ever the strategist, was already deep into planning the bank's rebranding. She knew that in order to attract new customers, they needed to shed the old image of a failing institution and present themselves as a forward-thinking, community-driven bank. The new name they chose, Unity Trust Bank, reflected their mission of bringing people together and building trust within the community. "We need to reach people where they are," Alicia said during a brainstorming session with her marketing team. "That means not just traditional advertising, but also a strong digital presence. We'll launch a new website, create an app with easy access to banking services, and use social media to engage directly with our customers. This bank needs to feel accessible and relevant to everyone." The renovation of the bank's physical space was another priority. They hired local contractors and artists to transform the drab interior into a vibrant, welcoming environment. The new design featured bright colors, modern furnishings, and artwork by local Black artists, creating a space that was both professional and reflective of the community it served. As the weeks went by, the transformation began to take shape. The old bank, once a symbol of decline, was becoming a beacon of hope. The grand reopening was scheduled for mid-summer, and as the date approached, the excitement in the neighborhood grew. But not everyone was pleased with the changes. Word had gotten back to Mr. Hale, who had been less than thrilled to learn that the bank had been sold to Marcus and Alicia. He had watched from afar, seething as the couple he had dismissed out of hand began to make waves in the local business community. Hale's resentment only deepened when he saw how much attention Unity Trust Bank was starting to receive. Local news outlets began covering the story of the bank's revival, framing it as a tale of empowerment and resilience. The bank's focus on serving the Black community, combined with its innovative approach to banking, was attracting customers who had previously felt alienated by the larger financial institutions. Determined to sabotage their success, Hale began quietly spreading rumors within his network of wealthy business contacts. He suggested that Unity Trust Bank was overextending itself, taking on too much risk with its community-focused initiatives. He whispered that the bank's leadership, despite their best intentions, lacked the experience to manage a financial institution and would soon find themselves in over their heads. Despite these underhanded efforts, Marcus and Alicia remained undeterred. They knew that challenges would come, but they were prepared to face them head-on. They were not only committed to proving Hale wrong, but also to demonstrating that a bank could be both profitable and a force for good. As the grand reopening approached, they worked tirelessly to finalize every detail. The community was abuzz with anticipation, and on the day of the event, the streets around the bank were filled with people. Banners hung from lampposts, music played from a nearby stage, and food trucks lined the block, creating a festival-like atmosphere. Marcus and Alicia stood side by side in front of the newly renovated bank, greeting guests and welcoming them to the event. Terrence and the rest of the team mingled with the crowd, answering questions and sharing their excitement about the bank's new direction. When it was time for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Marcus stepped up to the microphone, his heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. He looked out at the sea of faces: friends, family, community members, and local business owners, all of whom had come to support them. "Thank you all for being here today," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. "When Alicia and I first decided to take on this project, we knew it wouldn't be easy. But we also knew that our community deserved a bank that truly cared about its success, one that would invest in its people and help them achieve their dreams." Alicia stepped forward, taking the microphone. "Unity Trust Bank isn't just about finances, it's about empowerment. It's about creating opportunities where there were none before and building a future that we can all be proud of. We're here today because of you, because of your support, your trust, and your belief in what we can accomplish together." With that, they cut the ribbon, and the crowd erupted into cheers. The doors of Unity Trust Bank swung open, welcoming the community into a new era of possibility. As the day turned into evening, Marcus and Alicia finally had a moment to themselves. They stood outside the bank, watching as the last few guests trickled out, their hearts full of pride and hope. "We did it," Marcus said quietly, wrapping his arm around Alicia's shoulders. Alicia leaned into him, smiling. "This is just the beginning. We've got a lot of work ahead, but I know we're ready for it." Marcus nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. And we'll keep building, one step at a time." As they watched the lights of the bank glow softly in the dusk, they knew that Unity Trust Bank was more than just a business. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of community, and a beacon of hope in a world that often felt stacked against them. But Marcus and Alicia also knew that their journey was far from over. Challenges would continue to arise, and not everyone would be rooting for their success. Yet, standing there together, they felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The fight had only just begun, but they were stronger now, stronger together, and stronger with the community behind them. The first few months after the grand reopening of Unity Trust Bank were a whirlwind of activity. The community's response had been overwhelmingly positive. New customers flooded in, many of them opening accounts for the first time or transferring their business from larger, impersonal banks that had long ignored the needs of their neighborhood. Marcus and Alicia were elated by the success, but they knew that maintaining this momentum would require constant effort and vigilance. However, as their bank began to thrive, so did the challenges. Mr. Hale, unable to accept the success of Marcus and Alicia's venture, stepped up his efforts to undermine them. He began leveraging his connections within the financial industry, spreading insidious rumors that Unity Trust Bank was not as stable as it appeared. He hinted that the bank's focus on community lending and support for minority-owned businesses was reckless and would ultimately lead to its downfall. Despite the malicious rumors, Unity Trust Bank continued to grow, thanks to the unwavering support of the community and the dedicated work of Marcus, Alicia, and their team. But the strain was beginning to show. Marcus often found himself staying late into the night, poring over financial reports and strategy documents, trying to ensure that every decision they made was the right one. Alicia, meanwhile, focused on outreach, building relationships with local business owners and community leaders to solidify the bank's role as a pillar of support. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Marcus received a call from Terrence Lawson, their experienced and trusted advisor. Terrence's voice was calm but serious. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something important," Terrence said. "It's about the rumors Hale's been spreading. They're starting to gain traction among some of the bigger players in the industry. We need to address this before it gets out of hand." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. "What are they saying now?" "They're questioning the bank's liquidity," Terrence replied. "Hale's suggesting that we're over-leveraged and that our focus on community lending is a risk to our financial stability. We know it's not true, but perception is everything in this business. If enough people start to believe it, we could see a run on the bank." Alicia, who had been listening from across the room, frowned and walked over to Marcus's desk, her brow furrowed with concern. "We need to get ahead of this," she said quietly. "If people lose confidence in the bank, it could undo everything we've worked for." Marcus nodded, his mind racing. "We need to show the community and our investors that we're stronger than ever. But how?" Terrence hesitated for a moment before responding. "I've been thinking about that. What if we held a community meeting? Invite everyone, customers, local business owners, community leaders. We can be transparent about our financials, address any concerns, and reinforce our commitment to the community. It would show that we're not just a bank, but a partner they can trust." Alicia's eyes lit up at the idea. "That's exactly what we need to do. It's bold, but it could turn the tide in our favor. We can show them that we're not just surviving, but thriving, and we'll make it clear that Unity Trust Bank is here to stay." Marcus agreed, feeling a surge of determination. "Let's do it. We'll hold the meeting at the bank and make it a big event. We need to make sure that everyone leaves knowing the truth, that we're a strong, stable institution, and that we're not going anywhere." The next few days were a flurry of preparation. Marcus and Alicia, along with their team, worked tirelessly to plan the event. They reached out to their network, ensuring that key community leaders and influencers would be in attendance. They also prepared detailed financial reports, ready to share them with transparency and confidence. The day of the community meeting arrived, and the bank was abuzz with activity. The main lobby had been transformed into a meeting space, with rows of chairs set up facing a small stage where Marcus, Alicia, and Terrence would address the crowd. As the doors opened, people began to filter in: customers, business owners, journalists, and even some of the bank's skeptics. curious to see what the fuss was about. Marcus stood at the front, his heart pounding as he watched the room fill up. Alicia placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We've got this," she whispered. "We've done the work, and we're ready." When the time came to start, Marcus stepped up to the microphone, his nerves giving way to a calm, steady resolve. He looked out at the crowd, taking in the faces of the people they had worked so hard to serve. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice clear and confident. "We wanted to bring you all together to address some concerns that have been circulating about Unity Trust Bank. I know that rumors can spread quickly, and I want to be completely transparent with you about where we stand." He then walked the audience through the bank's financials, using simple, clear language to explain their current standing. He highlighted the success they had seen in the past few months: the new accounts opened, the loans granted, the businesses they had helped support. As he spoke, Alicia and Terrence stood beside him, ready to answer any questions and provide additional insights. Alicia took the microphone next, her voice filled with passion as she spoke about the bank's mission. "We started Unity Trust Bank because we believe in the power of community. We believe that everyone deserves access to financial services that are fair, accessible, and designed to help them succeed. We're not just here to make a profit, we're here to make a difference. And that's something we're incredibly proud of." The audience listened intently, and as Alicia finished speaking, a few people began to nod, murmuring their approval. The atmosphere in the room shifted from one of skepticism to one of support. They had come with doubts, but Marcus and Alicia's sincerity and transparency were winning them over. Terrence then took the microphone, addressing the more technical questions from the audience with the expertise that only decades in the industry could provide. He reassured everyone that Unity Trust Bank was not only stable but on a strong upward trajectory. As the meeting drew to a close, Marcus looked out at the audience one last time. "We're here because of you," he said. "We're committed to this community, and will continue to work tirelessly to ensure that Unity Trust Bank remains a place where you can trust your finances and your future." The room erupted in applause, and as the crowd began to disperse, many attendees approached Marcus, Alicia, and Terrence to express their support. The meeting had been a success more than just a defense against the rumors. It had reinforced the community's belief in the bank and in the vision that Marcus and Alicia had worked so hard to build. Later that evening, as the bank finally quieted down and the last of the attendees left, Marcus and Alicia sat together in the now empty lobby. The day had been long and exhausting, but the sense of accomplishment was palpable. "We did it," Alicia said, leaning her head on Marcus's shoulder. "We turned it around." Marcus smiled, a deep sense of relief washing over him. "We did. And now we keep going. We've shown them that we're not just a bank, we're a force for good in this community." Alicia nodded, closing her eyes and letting the moment sink in. "This is what we've been fighting for. And it's only the beginning." As they sat there together, the lights dimming around them, they knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges. But they also knew that they had the strength, the resilience, and the support of their community to face whatever came next. Unity Trust Bank was more than just a business. It was a movement, a testament to the power of perseverance, unity, and the belief that change was not only possible but within their grasp. As the months passed, Unity Trust Bank continued to flourish, becoming an indispensable part of the community it served. The efforts of Marcus, Alicia, and their team had not only stabilized the bank but had also transformed it into a thriving institution that uplifted those who had long been overlooked by the traditional banking system. The success of Unity Trust Bank began to draw attention far beyond their local community. National media outlets picked up the story, framing it as a triumph of resilience, innovation, and social justice. Marcus and Alicia were invited to speak at conferences, where they shared their experiences and insights on building a business that prioritized both profit and purpose. Their story resonated with many, especially in communities that had similarly been marginalized or underserved. One day, as they were wrapping up their work in the office, Marcus received an unexpected phone call. It was from an old colleague who now worked at one of the largest financial institutions in the country. The conversation started with pleasantries, but soon shifted to the real reason for the call. "Marcus, we've been following your work at Unity Trust Bank closely, the colleagues. What you and Alicia have done is nothing short of remarkable. Our leadership is interested in exploring a partnership. We believe there's a lot we could accomplish together." Marcus was taken aback by the offer. A partnership with such a powerful institution could bring even more resources to Unity Trust Bank, allowing them to expand their services and reach even more people. But he also knew that such a partnership could come with strings that might compromise the values and mission that had guided them from the beginning. He thanked his colleague for the offer and promised to discuss it with Alicia. That evening, they sat down at their dining room table, the same place where they had first conceived the idea of buying the bank. "What do you think?" Marcus asked, still mulling over the possibilities. Alicia leaned back in her chair, deep in thought. "It's a big opportunity, no doubt about it. But we have to be careful. We've built this bank on our own terms, with our own values. If we partner with a larger institution, we need to make sure that doesn't change." Marcus nodded. "That's my concern too. We've worked too hard to build something genuine, something that truly serves our community. I don't want to risk that for the sake of growth." Alicia reached across the table and took his hand. "Then we'll approach this the same way we've approached everything else, with careful consideration and a commitment to our principles. We can explore the partnership, but on our terms." In the days that followed, they met with representatives from the larger financial institution, carefully negotiating the terms of a potential partnership. Marcus and Alicia were firm in their stance. Unity Trust Bank's mission to serve its community must remain at the forefront, and any partnership must enhance, not diminish, their ability to fulfill that mission. To their surprise, the larger institution agreed to their terms. They recognized the unique value that Unity Trust Bank brought to the table, and were willing to support their mission without imposing their own agenda. The partnership was announced with great fanfare, and it marked the beginning of a new chapter for Unity Trust Bank. With the additional resources, Marcus and Alicia were able to expand their services even further. They launched new financial literacy programs, provided low-interest loans to startups in underserved areas, and opened several new branches in communities that had long been neglected by traditional banks. Unity Trust Bank became a model for how financial institutions could operate with a conscience, proving that doing good and doing well were not mutually exclusive. Meanwhile, Mr. Hale's attempts to undermine them had all but fizzled out. The success of Unity Trust Bank had silenced his rumors and left him with little credibility in the industry. In the end, he was forced into early retirement, his influence waning as the tide of change swept through the banking sector. One afternoon, as Marcus and Alicia sat in the office reflecting on all they had accomplished, they received a visit from an elderly woman named Mrs. Jenkins, one of their earliest customers. She had come to thank them personally for the loan that had allowed her to keep her family's business afloat. "You've done more than just save my business, Mrs." Jenkins said, her eyes welling with tears. "You've given me hope. Hope that there are still people in this world who care about more than just money. I can't thank you enough." Her words moved Marcus and Alicia deeply. It was moments like these that reminded them why they had embarked on this journey in the first place. They had not only built a successful bank, but had also touched the lives of countless individuals, helping them achieve dreams that had once seemed out of reach. As Mrs. Jenkins left, Marcus turned to Alicia, a warm smile spreading across his face. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Alicia smiled back, her eyes shining with pride. "We have. And the best part is, we're just getting started." They both knew that there would always be more work to do, more challenges to face, and more people to help. But they also knew that as long as they stayed true to their mission, they would continue to make a difference. Unity Trust Bank had become more than just a bank. It was a symbol of what was possible when determination, integrity, and community came together. And for Marcus and Alicia, that was worth more than any financial success. As they looked out of the window, watching the sun set over the city, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, just as they always had. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready for whatever came next. With their hands entwined, they stepped into the future with confidence, knowing that they had not only changed their own lives, but had also left a lasting impact on the world around them.